For all the subjectivity in comedy, we ultimately only deal in one currency and one currency only, which is laughter. It doesn't matter how clever or well written or well performed your comedy is. If no one's laughing, then it has failed as comedy. It doesn't matter how offensive it is. It doesn't matter how woke it is. It could be the greatest piece of spoken word of all time, but if nobody's laughing, then it's bad comedy. For all the different ways to approach comedy, at the end of the day, there really is a binary to determine if it is good or not. Are people laughing? Let me just get this guy out of the way. Sorry. That begs the question, what is laughing and why do we do it? For how important it is to validate comedy, most people can't actually tell you why they laugh. It becomes a self-referential answer almost. Something is funny because it makes you laugh, and something makes you laugh because it's funny. I think that's what Plato was talking about when he wrote Euthyphro regarding fart jokes. So what is laughter? I'm sure we all know what laughter is, but I doubt you've given much thought into what laughter is.
You probably shouldn't laugh anymore.
By the way, I hate when people meme on this scene. This is one of my favorite games, and they're clearly trying to make each other laugh by laughing badly on purpose. Okay, but people always use this as an example of bad anime voice acting, and I just wanted to get that out of the way. This game fucking rules. Anyway, laughter is that sound we make when we find something funny. You probably haven't given much thought as to why we need to do that in the first place. For something like when we're screaming, when we're afraid or in pain, it can signal to others in our caveman brain tribes that there is danger nearby. But for laughter, when it comes to an evolutionary purpose, perhaps it's equally useful to diffuse tension and show that there is no real danger. Like if we all heard some noise in the dark and it turns out it was just your dumbass friend, laughter could help signal that it was just a false alarm. I think it also might be why laughter is contagious. Speaking from experience, making 100 people laugh is way easier than making 5 people laugh. When one person laughs, it sets off a chain reaction that signals to everyone else that we're all just having a good time and we're safe together. When everyone laughs, it shows that we're all in one cohesive social unit together. And when I was doing research for this video, I came across this phenomenon called mirror neurons. These are parts of the brain that can't really tell the difference between seeing someone perform an emotion and feeling that emotion yourself. This is basically what empathy is in neurological terms for all intents and purposes. Laughter is functionally a social tool. I think it may be less useful for our physical survival compared to fear, but it is instrumental in our social survival. How often have you found yourself actually laughing out loud when you're alone? It's probably much rarer than when you're with your friends. I've seen dozens of comedy specials from world-renowned comedians without so much as cracking a smile alone in my bedroom, but I'll be dying from laughter seeing a less skilled or less famous comedian live in a room full of other people who are actively trying to have a good time. Laughter releases positive chemicals in the brain like endorphins, so when we laugh, we tend to see the source of the laughter in a more positive light, wanting to engage with it more. So when a group of people can laugh together, it strengthens the social cohesion of the tribe, as it may be. Which may be why when you see someone laugh at something that you may deem to be socially unacceptable or offensive, it can be a pretty big turnoff when it comes to your opinion of that person. I think it's very interesting for how hard it can be for us to convincingly fake laugh also. We've all seen it. There's something uncanny about a person pretending to laugh, since it's usually an uncontrollable reaction. Ha, 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 ha. A performative, rehearsed expression of laughter just feels phony. In a research paper I found online called The Perception of Spontaneous and Volitional Laughter Across 21 Societies, really rolls off the tongue. Check this out from the abstract. Using a set of 36 recorded laughs produced by female English speakers in a test involving 884 participants from 22 societies across 6 regions of the world, we asked listeners to determine whether each laugh was real or fake. And listeners differentiated between 2 laugh types with an accuracy of 56 to 69%. Acoustic analysis revealed that sound features associated with arousal in vocal production predicted listeners' judgments fairly uniformly across societies. I was surprised to see that accuracy was only at 56 to 69%. I would have imagined it would have been a lot higher. I wasn't able to hear the actual recordings of the laughter they used for myself, so I am curious to see just how convincing they were. So that leads us to our next question. If we know why we laugh, what is funny? I feel like this is the type of question that will never have one neat, compact E=mc² formula to define it, because for every example, you can find 100 different counterexamples. No matter how many examples I give you of what I think is funny, there will always be exceptions and counterarguments. I remember the first time I discovered anti-jokes with my friends as a teenager, and we were dying laughing, only for me to go up to my mom and just have her stare at me blankly as I said, "What did one lawyer say to the other lawyer? We are both lawyers." I guess you had to be there. The leading theory I've seen describes something as being funny as a benign violation, meaning it upsets some sort of standard, a violation, but is ultimately harmless. That's the benign. Like, for example, Wile E. Coyote exploding is a violation of physics, but he's unharmed, so it's benign. Or Michael Scott being cringe is a violation of workplace etiquette, but he means well. It's the same concept as why people being so viciously murdered in Final Destination movies is fun, but a hardcore, you-know-what scene in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is deeply disturbing. They are both ultimately harmless because they aren't real, but one feels much more fun than the other. This theory comes from the Humor Research Lab, an institution I'm not too familiar with. It appears to be a research group out of the University of Colorado, and they seem really proud of this theory because it's all they have on their website besides a few books you can buy, so check those out. And while I think this covers the broad strokes of what we find funny and why, I think it is predicated on the person being a morally righteous person also. I don't think anyone can honestly say they haven't laughed at the misfortunes of those that they dislike. And while it's not the most virtuous thing, I think most people, if they were being honest, would say that they've laughed at something that was not just benign, like someone getting hurt, bullied, or humiliated. In some cases, that might just be to fit in or to look cool. And I've grown out of it now, but as a teenager, I used to get genuine joy from cringe compilations and prank videos. But now that I've grown out of it, I think they're really mean-spirited. Since I've worked in retail in the past, I don't really think it's funny to fuck with people at their jobs. And now that I've humiliated myself on stage more often than I can count, I don't really get any amusement from cringe videos anymore. I suppose it comes from the same parts of our psyche that enjoy the suffering of others for one reason or another. In cases like this, I think we might be laughing, but I wouldn't necessarily say that we find it funny. In these cases, I think the laughter is more like rubbing salt in the wound of the person we dislike rather than expressing our own enjoyment. At the end of the day, this is simply a question that will never have a definitive cookie-cutter answer that applies to all people. And as the great Mark Twain said, analyzing a joke is just like dissecting a frog. You might figure out how it works, but it usually dies in the process. Or was that E.B. White? Who knows? So what makes you laugh? Do you know why? Do you care? Leave a comment and be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.